So I grew up in Macclesfield in the Adelaide Hills, which is quite close to here. But about 15 years ago, a job brought me to McLaren Vale, and I've been here ever since. I think I'll be staying here because I love it. So my name's Renae Hirsch. I'm a consultant winemaker, and I make wines for McLaren Vale producers Chalk Hill, Willunga 100, Hugo Family Wines, Aramis Vineyards, and a bunch of other smaller producers. I think my approach to winemaking is quite simple. I like to sort of showcase the vineyards in the wines that I make. So I'm all about showing fruit purity, elegance, I guess balance in the wines. For reds, I like to see some nice structure. For whites, I like to see freshness, a little bit of texture, and to really show the characters of the fruit that I see in the vineyard. So I work with a bunch of different vineyards around the whole district for the different brands that I make wine for. If I start with the cooler sort of sites, for Willunga 100, I make wines from vineyards in Clarendon and Blewett Springs. Hugo, where we are today, is at the sort of top end of McLaren Flat at the foothills. And then if we move into some of the warmer regions, Aramis's vineyards are in Whites Valley. I also take fruit for both Cascabel and Mott family vineyards from Sellex Hill. And then for Chalk Hill, we take fruit from all of the other regions that I've already mentioned, along with Willunga and Seaview. So it's a big diversity across the whole of the region. Many different soil types, from deep sands through to loams and clays. Lots of different aspects and elevations, and many different microclimates across the region. All the producers that I make wine for, or most of them, own their own vineyards, but they don't have a producing winery, so we use a whole lot of different contract facilities to make their wines. So I make wines for a number of different brands across the district, but I do try to keep a house style for them all. Sometimes it's quite easy in that it's about a sense of place. Some of the producers have just a small vineyard holding, and the wines really reflect that site. But I also try to work with the owners of the wine brands to make sure that we are producing wines that are distinct to them, that they're happy with, and they're really proud of. I have been fortunate enough to win a number of awards over the past few years, and it's so lovely to get that kind of recognition and to know that the wines that I'm making are popular. As far as why, I have no idea. I mean, I think it comes back to the quality of the fruit from the McLaren Vale vineyards that we're taking fruit from. Working with growers and owners to try to make the best wines we can out of the fruit that we get, and trying to improve the fruit in the vineyard as well. From a winemaking perspective, I think one of the main key decisions is the picking decision. I always try to pick fruit just as it's getting flavour right, but while it still has freshness. And then I guess making wines that have an aromatic presence, have a really nice purity of fruit, reflect the vineyard, and have good length of flavour. That's the aim. I think McLaren Vale is quite special in a number of ways. Traditionally, we've been producing fantastic quality Shiraz and Cabernet over many years, but I think the region is also constantly evolving. So if you take Grenache as an example, over the past decade, many of the producers are trying to make a much fresher style of Grenache, really showing the specifics of the site. Other ways that the region is evolving is looking at new varieties that perhaps are better suited to a warming climate and our warm climate. So I'm thinking varieties, white varieties that hold acid really well, like the Italian Fiano, Vermentino, and then also some of the southern French varieties like Grenache Gris and Picpoul. And then when you look at reds, some of the varieties that do well in the warmer climates, a bit more medium bodied, go well with food. So I think Shiraz has evolved in the region as well. I mean, there's the whole range of styles with Shiraz. So there are people making really traditional styles, and then there's people making really elegant styles. Yeah, there's a whole gamut, and I think there's a place for all of them. So I think there is a lot of diversity in McLaren Vale. Even if you just look at the brands that I make wine for, there's a lot of diversity amongst them. But if we look at Shiraz as an example, I make a whole bunch of different styles of Shiraz for different clients, from some of the cooler climate areas where we tend to pick the fruit a bit earlier. We'll use some whole bunches. We try to make the wines more floral, more elegant. Less time in oak, they get bottled early. They're a bit more medium bodied. Right through to some of the more traditional Shiraz styles that are picked a little bit riper, spend a bit more time in oak, a little bit more new oak, and are a bit more traditional style. And I think there's a place for all of those within the region. In terms of varieties, there's a massive diversity of different varieties within the region as well. I counted that I make 15 different varieties in the region, but there are many more that I don't even touch. So from that perspective, there's so much diversity as well. Blends are not as popular as they once were, except for some of the blends like Tempranillo Grenache has been very successful. We're making one here for Hugo now. We make a couple of Shiraz Cab blends as well, but a lot of the wines are single varietals these days. So yeah, my favourite grape variety to work with is definitely Grenache, particularly from some of the older vineyards in the region, the old bush vines. They just show such beautiful purity of fruit, a lovely sense of sight, and Grenache can be medium-bodied and yet so complex and have such great structure. Some of the most memorable wines that I've ever had as a wine lover have been consumed within the wine region that they come from. And then when you come home and you have another bottle from that region, it really reminds you or evokes the memories of visiting. So I guess if you bring that to McLaren Vale and it's summertime, having a Fiano down at the coast, I don't think you can beat that. When someone drinks a wine that I've made as a winemaker, the main thing is that they're liking it, that it's going well with the food that they're eating, and that it's sort of contributing to the greater experience, which is more than just the wine. I think I've done almost 30 vintages now, so I'm getting a bit old, but they're all memorable in some way or another. Sometimes some of the most memorable ones are not necessarily for great reasons. It'll be something to do with how stressful they were, how compact they were, some sort of weather event that caused a lot of stress. But if you look back, I guess some of the more memorable ones are the ones where you've had really great fruit and the quality is really good. So in recent years, I think the 2022 vintage was fantastic in McLaren Vale. We were fortunate enough to win a few awards out of the 22 vintage for Chalk Hill, including the Bushing Monarch Trophy. I think there's so many things that make McLaren Vale unique. I think one thing is the proximity to the coast. That obviously that Mediterranean climate that we have here, it plays a big role in wine style. It also has a role in some of the soil types of the region, with some of those deep sandy soils, which were old sand dunes from thousands of years ago. But also just the culture of the area is really, I think, impacted by that coastal proximity. There's a real relaxed, sort of very friendly vibe in people in McLaren Vale. Another thing I think that makes the region unique from a winemaking perspective is the amount of collaboration that happens within the region. I think most of my peers are very much willing to talk about how they're making wines, what's working, what's not, what they're innovating with, and it's all for the greater good of the region, which is lovely. As far as inspiration, there have been many people in the district that have inspired me over the years. Two people come to mind immediately. Brian Light, who is now retired, but was a winemaker that worked in McLaren Vale for basically his whole career. And then also Mike Farmelo, who keeps threatening to retire, but he never gets there. And he has worked in the region for many years as well. They've both been very helpful to me, especially when I was starting my own winemaking consultancy business. Many of the sort of trailblazing or blue sky thinking people in McLaren Vale, and there seems to be quite a lot of them in a small area. Also, some of the growers. Some of those growers that kept Grenache in the ground, even through periods of time where it was really hard to sell. I'm very thankful that they didn't pull those vines out and we still have them. And then some of the other growers who have planted some of the emerging varieties, they've taken a risk without knowing whether those varieties are going to grow well here or whether there's going to be any commercial success with them. All those people are inspirations to me.